So, question 3 says solve this equation here, and I've labelled it as a quadratic equation. It is a quadratic equation. A couple of things we want to note about quadratic equations. One, I'll make a note of this here. So do some bullet points. So they could have two solutions. And in fact, they usually have two solutions, but it's possible they can have only one solution. It's actually possible that they can have no solutions. But at GCSE, you usually have at least one solution. Maybe always. Anyway, there's that. And the power of the variable, remember, means just the unknown thing, which is usually x, and it is here. But that could have said a plus 1 multiplied by a minus 2 is equal to 0. The power of the variable, or let's say the maximum power, the maximum power of the variable is 2. That's, we could say more, but that will do at a basic level. Now, it looks like we don't have a power of maximum power of 2 here. This is x to the power of 1, and this is x to the power of 1. But what we've got here is this is a factorized version of the equation. If we were to expand this out, then we're going to multiply the x by the x. I'm just going to make my pen a bit thinner. We'd multiply the x by the x, which would give us x squared. So we're just going to take the left-hand side and factorize it out. And we're going to multiply the 1 by the x, so that would give me x. And then we're going to multiply the x by the negative 2. So that would give me, take away 2x. And then we're going to multiply the 1 by the negative 2. Which will give me negative 2. And I've not done anything to that. I've just written it differently, just expanded it. So it's still going to be equal to 0. And we can see the x and the minus 2x, they can be collected. So we could rewrite this as x squared, and then that would be minus x, and then minus 2 is equal to 0. So here we can see we've got a maximum power of 2. So that's why. So it's a quadratic equation. Whenever you solve quadratic, there's 3 main different ways of solving quadratic equations. The first way of solving quadratic equations is by factorizing, and in this case, they've already factorized it for you. So once you understand how to do quadratic equations, if you saw a question like this would actually be very easy, but only once you understand how quadratic equations look. If we started off with this format that I've just expanded it into, I would need to turn it into what they've given us there, which is why what they've given us is easier, because I wouldn't need to do that step, but I need to know that that's a necessary step. Otherwise, it wouldn't be easy. So what I do when I want to factorize, and this only works when the value, the coefficient for x squared is 1. In other words, there's only 1 x squared rather than 2x squared or 3x squared. If it's a 1x squared, as we've got here, then what I'm looking for is 2 numbers that when they multiply, they give negative 2, this value here, and when you add them, the same 2 numbers, they give the coefficient here, which would be negative, not negative x, but negative 1. It's negative 1. It's the coefficient. It's how many lots of x's there are. So negative 1. So 2 numbers that when I multiply, they give negative 2, and when they add, they give negative 1. So I was a little bit thinking about what those numbers could be. To work out what those numbers can be, the easiest way to do it is to look at what the possible numbers for this are, and then find out which combination would cause them to be added together to give this one. So I can see that it's going to be negative 2 and 1. Negative 2 and 1 multiplied to give negative 2. Negative 2 and 1 also add to give negative 1. And so when I factorize it, so I'll move this now over to here. When I factorize it, I end up with x and then the minus 2. In fact, I could, if I do it, we can probably see now that the minus 2 is this one up here, and the 1 is that one there. So that's why I would end up with x plus 1 from this one here, multiplied by x minus 2 from this one here. And that's factorized, and again, it's equal to 0. So as I said, they've done that bit for us. So we would get to this stage here. What would we do now then? Well, what we want to notice, and this is the trick to how to solve quadratic equations, is I've now got something which is x plus 1 and multiplied by something else which is x minus 2. So we could, if we want for the moment, imagine that we have a multiplied by b. It doesn't matter. The point is it's just something multiplied by something else. Okay, so a in this case is x plus 1 and b is x minus 2. The point is I'm just emphasizing that it's something multiplied by something else, and that's equal to 0. So this is the trick. The only way that you can multiply two numbers and get 0 is if one of them, or possibly both of them, equals 0. You can't get a 0 by multiplying any two other numbers, and the only way you can do it is if one of them is equal to 0. So we don't know which one is equal to 0. In this example here, we could say a is equal to 0, or we could say b is equal to 0, or maybe they're both equal to 0. But we don't know which one or whether or not it's both. So in the same way, up here, we can say x plus 1 might be equal to 0, or, and this is why I said it could have two solutions, or x minus 2 is equal to 0. And we would solve in each case by just rearranging it now. So we would minus 1 from both sides, and we end up with x is equal to negative 1. And in this case, we add 2 to both sides, and we have x is equal to 2. And that would be the solution, even though there are two possibilities. As I said, with the quadratic equations, you can have two possible solutions.